When my millionaire grandmother passed, she left everything to me. My parents, who spent years calling me not family, sued me. But in court, the judge looked at them and said, "Wait, you're the defendants." They had no idea who I really was. For 31 years, I was the ghost in my own family, useful only when they needed something. Then my grandma died, and the will reading wasn't just a shock. It was an earthquake that exposed the ugliest truths about who we all really were. See, my name's Edward, and I run a small farm. The kind of place people just drive through unless they need diesel or a dozen eggs. I'm talking corn, soy rotation, 6 Jersey cows, and a knack for fixing things with baling twine when the budget says no. I wear the same beat-up canvas jacket, year in, year out, and my toolbox? That was Grandma's, given to me when I was just 14. In my family, I was always the extra, the forgotten one. Not really family. My mom would sigh when she thought I wasn't listening. It started as a joke, but it quickly became a rule. My older brother, Nate, he was the golden child. Varsity everything, spoke in bullet points like he was selling his own reflection. And my younger sister, Julia, total princess, cheer captain, lash extensions by 16, practically promised a condo by 20. Me? I was the background farmhand. The kid who stayed out in the shed, who just didn't get it. Dad loved to chime in with his favorite line, "City brains make money, farm hands make messes." He'd drop it at Thanksgiving, at graduations, even at the DMV. It was rehearsed. I learned to just nod and keep moving. Seed needed planting. Animals needed water. Fences always sagged. Storms, they don't care who you think you are. But Grandma, Dad's mom, she never followed their script. She'd come out to the field, her straw had a satellite dish against the sun, and pass me a thermos of sweet tea. "You got your grandfather's hands, Edward," she'd say. "That's good. Hands keep you honest." We never talked money, just weather, and how tomatoes are liars until they're perfectly ripe. When I was 18, she pressed my palm and gave me a piece of wisdom that stuck. Don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. I didn't argue. I just showed up. Nate needed a truck at midnight. I showed up. Mom needed her porch steps fixed before her ladies' Bible brunch. I showed up. Julia's cat got stuck in the crawl space. I went headfirst into spider hell. Came out coughing up insulation, but I was smiling in the photo she posted, captioned, "Not all heroes. They like me useful, but only useful, never really in the room." The real trigger wasn't a shouting match or a slammed door. It was the county fair. Dad was holding court under the livestock pavilion, his voice booming about Nate's big city investment job and Julia's brand deals. I stood behind him, a hay hook heavy in my hand, invisible as usual. Then, a woman pointed at me. "Isn't that your son with the dairy ribbons?" she asked. Dad didn't even turn around. He just waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, him? He just helps out," he said, loud enough for everyone. "He's not really family. More of a helper." I just laughed, because if I didn't, my face would have shattered. I put the hook down, walked out into the blinding August sun, and didn't look back. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, still not sure why I picked up. "Edward," a crisp voice said. "This is Attorney Marion Keller. I represent your grandmother." There was a beat of silence. "We need to talk." I leaned against the feed store wall, the soft thud of goats ramming a gate echoing in my ears. "Is she okay?" I asked, my voice thin. "She passed this morning," the attorney said. The wind suddenly roared in my ears. The sun felt too hot, too bright. "Oh," she added, "there's a will. You should probably sit down." I slid onto a stack of mulch bags, between the premium cedar and the buy 3, get 1 free. I had no idea how much that call would change everything, or how fast my parents would show me exactly what not really family looked like when money finally walked into the room. People always think the explosion starts with the money. It doesn't. Not for me, anyway. It starts with all those unpaid tabs, years before the money even shows up. Mine started at 12, when Mom told me to skip a school trip because Nate's science project grade really mattered. It kept going when Dad said I didn't need college if I had dirt under my nails. And then Grandma, bless her, secretly slipped me $300 for community college, whispering, "Don't tell." I registered for night classes, soil science, AG business. But then Dad asked me to cover a Saturday concrete pour for Nate's friend's garage slab because Nate had a big interview. I missed my exam. Took the fail. Retook it. "You're stubborn," Grandma would say, always like a blessing. And let me be clear, we weren't poor. Not by a long shot. We had a 4-bedroom colonial, a wraparound porch, and a barn Dad called decorative that I kept from collapsing with a bottle jack and a prayer. New cars in the driveway every few years. Nate got a silver SUV at 17 to boost his confidence. Julia got a convertible at 18 to celebrate her scholarship. Me? I got keys to an '02 farm truck with a cracked windshield and a note. "Watch the transmission." When I asked Dad if we could fix it, he just shrugged. "You can," he said, "if you buy the parts." So I did. "That's the point, Edward," he'd say. Lessons. I started paying rent at 19, $300 cash in a plain envelope, left on Mom's desk every month. "So you'll learn," she'd say. I covered the propane delivery one winter because Dad forgot, and I didn't want my siblings cold. I fixed the septic when it burped up shame into the yard. I learned later, while I was changing filters and making payment plans, they were taking vacations with hashtags. I didn't resent it then. Resentment, it's like rust. Slow, patient, thorough. When Grandma died, the town put up a nice obituary, garden club, church choir, beloved matriarch. They conveniently left out the ledger she kept of every time she watched a game through a window, because she wasn't invited inside. Every eye roll from my mom when she brought over a casserole. They left out the part where she ran numbers in her head while snapping beans. Grandma wasn't just kind. She was quiet rich. No one in the family ever did the math because, in their minds, she didn't even own math. Attorney Keller's office felt hushed. The carpet so thick your boot heel disappeared. She poured coffee like we were old friends, then slid a folder across the polished desk. Your grandmother set up a trust when your grandfather passed, she explained. She added to it over the years. Sold a piece of land your father didn't even know she still held. Invested carefully. I just nodded. You nod when someone uses words like trust and carefully in the same breath. Then she just said it. Bluntly. She left everything to you, Edward. The house. The accounts. The land across Route 9. The CDs. The brokerage. I stared at the manila folder. My voice came out small, a whisper. Why me? She wrote it down, Keller said, tapping the file. Do you want to read your letter now, or later? I took it to my truck, my forehead pressed against the steering wheel as I read it. Grandma's handwriting leaned right, like it was always hurrying somewhere. Edward, it read, *, you saw me. You fix what breaks. You listen more than you talk. This won't make you better than anyone. It will make you louder to people who haven't been listening. Don't apologize for being chosen, but don't gloat. Use it to finish what your grandfather started. And when they try to make you feel small, remember you were always big. Love, Grandma. *, I didn't tell anyone for a day. Just fed the cows, mended fences, carrying that letter like a talisman against the world. Then, Keller scheduled the reading. She insisted on her office, to keep it professional. I knew what that meant. My family showed up dressed like it was brunch. Mom in a pink blazer. Dad in his church suit. Nate with a haircut that tried way too hard. Julia in pristine white, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. They expected shares. They expected fairness. They expected equal. They expected me to be a footnote. Keller began. She read Grandma's words, short, clean, unambiguous. I leave the entirety of my estate to my grandson, Edward. Mom laughed. A single, sharp bark. Dad's jaw worked, like he was chewing gravel. Nate's face did a complex calculation and came up with a number he clearly hated. Julia whispered, what? 3 times, like a desperate chant. Mom leaned forward, eyes blazing. This is a mistake, she snapped. She meant Nate. He's the eldest. Keller just looked at her. She wrote, Edward. Mom's confusion turned to fury. Keller then slid out a video file. She recorded a statement last month. She pressed play. There was Grandma, in her kitchen, measuring cups behind her, that familiar rooster clock over her shoulder. She said, looking right into the camera. This is for after I go. I'm leaving everything to Edward. If you're angry, ask yourself why. If you're surprised, it's because you weren't paying attention. Mom stood up so fast her chair rocked. This is insane. Dad pointed at me, his voice booming. Did you manipulate her? I just blinked. I was in a field, I said, mostly forever. Nate tried to plaster on a smile. Hey, we can work something out, right? Family. Julia, her mascara still perfectly intact, chimed in. It's not like you need it, Edward. You're just a farmer. I didn't say a word. Just signed where Keller told me. Picked up my hat. Mom blocked the door. You can't do this, she hissed. I didn't do anything. I replied, my voice calm. You're not really family, she said, the autopilot engaged, that cruel line a raw reflex. Keller stepped between us, her voice now steel. That will be all. Any disputes can be filed formally. Disputes came fast. By the end of that week, my phone was a hot mess. 53 missed calls, 27 texts from 3 different numbers, and 1 voicemail from Dad that was just heavy breathing, followed by a growled answer, your father. They demanded a renegotiation. Said Grandma owed the family. Said I should be a man and split it 3 ways. When I didn't budge, they pulled out the old tools. Guilt. Shame. Rewriting history. You used her, Mom texted. She was lonely. You always were a taker. Nate wrote, don't let a windfall turn you into a monster. You can keep the house. Julia DM'd me, but the cash is low-key ours. I didn't answer a single one. Just reread Grandma's letter and went out to grease the auger. I moved into Grandma's house. Someone had to feed the bluebird that kept hitting the kitchen window like it owned the place, right? I stacked her recipe cards, ran my hands over the dent in the banister where Grandpa's ring had worn a smooth groove. I slept in a room that still smelled like rose soap and cedar. My family, though, they escalated. From family meeting to financial plan to legal counsel. Then, the envelope arrived on a Friday. Complaint. It screamed at the top. They were suing me for undue influence, interference with expected inheritance, and my personal favorite, conversion of family assets. I sat on the porch steps, holding the paper like it might bite me. Cows chewed, oblivious. The sky went that bruised blue of another storm rolling in. I called Keller. My voice was steady, but my hands? They were shaking. They'll lose, she said. But we'll have to play the game. Okay, I said. And Edward, she added. Don't talk to them without me. Mom called 14 times that night. She left one voicemail, so comment made my stomach flip. We just want what's right, Edward, she purred. You know you're not really one of us. Old line. New teeth. I changed the farm's locks. I set boundaries like fences, firm posts, tight wire. No apologies. They didn't like fences when they weren't the ones building them. Court dates don't feel like TV, you know? They feel like waiting rooms that forgot their purpose. I wore a clean shirt and my only good boots. Keller told me to keep my answers short and to look at the judge, not my mother. You don't win points with performance, she said. You win with facts. When we walked into the courtroom, Mom rolled her eyes so hard I actually heard the air move. Nate smirked, like we were settling a bar tab. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Julia whispered to a friend in the second row, like this was just content for her social media. The judge, a man with a face like a closed garage door, shuffled papers, adjusted his glasses, looked at the docket, then froze. He looked from the complaint to me, then to Mom and Dad, then back to me. Wait, he said, eyebrows raised. The charges are against you? Keller didn't flinch. Yes, Your Honor. He looked at Mom. You're alleging undue influence by your son, the farmer? Mom lifted her chin. He isolated her, she stated. He took advantage. The judge glanced at the file again. Your mother's video says otherwise. She was coerced. Dad boomed, as if volume could somehow change the law. The judge sighed, like a man who'd fixed the same leaky faucet one too many times. We'll hear testimony, he said. But I want to be clear. Wills that are properly executed and videotaped are hard to overturn. Mom scoffed, loud enough to carry. They put me on the stand. Opposing counsel tried to make farm chores sound like waterboarding. How often were you alone with your grandmother? He drilled. Most days, I said. She liked to sit with the cows. What did you discuss? Feed, weather, the neighbor's dog. Did she ever offer you money? Once, I said. For a tractor part. I told her no, but she bought the part anyway and left the receipt in my glove box. He tried another angle. Isn't it true you needed financial help? I needed a new head gasket. I corrected. I had a payment plan. He leaned in. And then she died and left you everything. Convenient, isn't it? I looked at the judge. I would have preferred she didn't die, I said quietly. Keller's questions were simple. Did you ever ask your grandmother to change her will? No. Did you know she had a trust? No. What did she talk about most? How my grandfather built a life with 2 hands and a borrowed wrench. And pie. She was very serious about pie crust. A ripple of unexpected laughter spread through the back of the courtroom. Mom glared at the sound, as if it had personally betrayed her. Then, Keller called a witness I didn't expect. Pastor Lane, the woman who ran Grandma's church group. She brought a notebook, filled with tidy handwriting and dates. For 2 years, the pastor said, tapping her notebook, she planned to leave everything to Edward. She said, he pays attention. The pastor then looked directly at my mother. She also said she didn't trust her son and daughter-in-law with property because they kept suggesting she downsize and gift things early. Mom flushed crimson. We were helping, she hissed. Keller called the farm supply owner. He testified that Grandma paid her own bills and haggled like a champ. The mail carrier confirmed Grandma walked 2 miles a day and only cursed when the mailbox iced shut. The banker confirmed the trust's creation date and notarized letters. Each witness was a brick, steadily building an unshakable wall. Then it was Mom's turn. She cried on the stand like she'd been training for it. We're a close family, she sobbed. He's not really. Finish that sentence, Mrs. Hart. The judge cut in. Mom swallowed. He's different, she finally managed. Keller's cross-examination was clean. You texted him, and I quote, you're not really family, twice in the month before the will reading. Do you deny that? Mom blinked. That was a figure of speech. You also sent him a spreadsheet titled Fair Split, with percentages next to each sibling's name and 0 next to his. Did you think he was part of your family when you wrote that? Silence. Mrs. Hart, the judge said, his voice flat. Is there any evidence of coercion? Mom's jaw twitched. He's cunning, she whispered. The judge leaned back. Being competent is not coercion. We broke for lunch. I sat on a wooden bench in the hallway, gnawing on a granola bar because my stomach just couldn't trust sandwiches. Nate walked over, hands in expensive pockets, leaning down like we were teammates. Here's the thing, Edward, he said softly. I've got investors calling. There's a fund we can launch if you liquidate 500 grand. We'll cut you in. I have a herd that needs hay, I said. He smirked. You could buy hay with interest. Don't be emotional. Julia came next, perfume like a phone store. Mom's a mess, she said. Just give her the house. Keep the cash. No, I said. Her eyes widened. Wow, she said, genuinely puzzled. What happened to you? You used to be easy. I grew a spine, I said. Back in the courtroom, Keller rested our case. Mom's lawyer gave a long, flowery closing about legacy and fairness. Keller stood and said 10 words. Your Honor, the law is clear. The will speaks for itself. The judge looked at me, then at my mother. And then he delivered the words I didn't even know I'd been holding my breath to hear. Complaint dismissed. Mom gasped, like someone had stomped on her foot. Dad's face went from red to ashen. Nate stared at a spot on the floor. Julia reached for her phone. We stood. I turned to my family. My voice came out quiet, almost a whisper. The way a locked door sounds when it clicks shut. This isn't about revenge, I told them. This is about closure. You'd think dismissal would calm things down. It didn't. It just changed the channel. If they couldn't take it in court, they'd try to take it socially. Overnight, Facebook posts popped up about greedy relatives and ungrateful children. Vague enough for deniability, but sharp enough for that one aunt who loves drama to DM me. Did you really kick your parents out of your grandmother's house while they were grieving? No one was kicked. I typed back. They left when the judge said the law is the law. Mom called daily for a solid week after. She cycled through voices. Sad, stern, nostalgic. We used to bake cookies together, Edward, she'd coo. As if sugar could neutralize slander. Remember when you broke your arm and I slept on the couch near you? I remembered sleeping on the couch alone because the AC in my room was broken and Dad didn't want to pay for a repair. I didn't correct her. I just said, I'm not discussing the estate. She'd hang up with a frustrated hiss of breath. Dad left one message that was just the word traitor. He even spelled it out, T-R-I-T-O-R. I replayed it once, just to be sure, then forwarded all their voicemails to Keller and blocked their numbers. Boundaries are only real when they have consequences. Life on the farm, the real practical life, still needed my attention. I hired an accountant because, let's be honest, taxes are not vibes. I met the farm neighbor at 6 a.m. to talk about renting the north pasture, with an option to buy in 2 years. I paid off Grandma's lingering medical bills and sent handwritten thank you notes to every single witness who told the truth, especially when it would have been easier not to. I even set up a scholarship at the vocational school in her name for AG program students who were the first in their family to pick up a wrench. I wrote the first check myself, and I cried in my truck where no one could see me. And I put work into her house. My house now. Because that's what love looks like when someone is gone. I replaced the roof with a pale metal that'll outlast us all. I refinished the floors. But I left her measuring cups exactly where they were. And I framed the letter she wrote me, hanging it right by the back door. The calls didn't stop completely. They just changed platforms. 10 missed FaceTimes in a row from Julia. 13 texts in one afternoon from Nate's new number. Caps lock screaming, be a man. Then lowercase whimpering, we're struggling. A whole list. His rent, his car lease, his bridge loan. His girlfriend's brand pivot. I read it, put the phone face down, picked up a wrench, and tightened a squealing belt on the auger. The town, of course, took sides. At the hardware store, an old man slapped my back. Good for you, Edward. At the diner, a woman I'd known since kindergarten told me I shouldn't shame my mother online. As if me posting a photo of Grandma's barn with the caption, still standing, was public warfare. I learned to just nod and refill my coffee. A week after the dismissal, Mom came to the farm. She stood at the fence line in a white cardigan and wedge sandals that had absolutely no business being in the mud, hands gripping the top rail like a preacher. I stayed by the gate. Distance, you know, it's a friend. You're doing this to punish me, she accused. I'm doing what Grandma told me to do, I replied. She didn't mean it. She was old. Mom insisted. She meant it, I said. She wanted us to be taken care of. Mom tried again. She told me to take care of what Grandpa built. I sighed. She switched tactics. Your father is humiliated. He humiliated himself. I said, simply. She stared past me at the barn. You were always handy, she mused. It sounded like an insult and a compliment got stuck together, refusing to separate. Being handy bought your propane, I said, before I could swallow the words. Her mouth opened, then closed. We raised you, she said finally, like an invoice. I thought about every $300 rent envelope I'd left on her desk. Every favor, that came with a lecture. And then I remembered Grandma's note. Don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Go home, I said. Please. She didn't move. We're still your family. I looked at the fence between us. Solid. Straight. You told me I wasn't, I said. For years. She flinched. Just a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker. Half a second. Fine, she snapped. If you think you're better than us now, enjoy it. Money leaves faster than it arrives. She spun, her heels sinking in the dirt, and drove away too fast for a gravel road. Dust hung heavy in the air. I wiped my eyes with the back of my wrist, because a little grit had found its way in. I expected the quiet to feel empty. It didn't. It felt like open space. I started getting up at 4:45 instead of 4:30, no longer braced for a text demanding a favor before sunrise. I started running the south fence line in the evenings with the dog, a mutt Grandma called Buddy, because she wasn't interested in irony. I kept a notepad on the kitchen table and wrote down small wins, pump humming, calf number 12 gaining. Found a better deal on mineral. Then, just when the dust seemed to settle, another envelope arrived by certified mail. Notice of appeal. Of course, Keller called before I could even dial her. Don't panic, she said. They're just trying to drag this out. How long? I asked. Long enough to hope you'll cave. I won't, I told her. I know, she said. But they don't. The appeal failed fast. Procedural. Sloppy. The judge didn't even schedule a full hearing, just issued a memo that read like a sigh. Mom posted a photo of a Bible on Facebook with the caption, "In God's timing." I just turned off my phone and fixed a stuck gate hinge. The last wave came soft. A text from a number I didn't have saved. "It's Nate. Want to talk? Not about money." I stared at it for a full minute. I typed, "About what?" He wrote, "About Mom. She's saying you're cutting us off for good. Is that true?" I stood in